Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing well. Today, I want to share something that really helped me when I was learning how to communicate more clearly in English, how to explain something complex in a simple and understandable way. Whether you're explaining a new idea, giving instructions, or just sharing your thoughts, it's important to know how to break things down so others can follow along easily. Let me tell you about my experience and how I learned to explain things more clearly. I remember a time when I was explaining a complicated concept to a friend. It was something about a project at work, and I thought I had a pretty good understanding of it. But when I started talking, my friend's face just went blank. She said, "Wait, can you explain that again?" I realized that I had just thrown too much information at her all at once, and she couldn't keep up. That's when I decided to figure out how to break things down more clearly so people wouldn't get lost in the details. The first thing I learned was that you need to break down your thoughts into smaller, easier to understand parts. Instead of explaining everything all at once, try to focus on one idea at a time. For example, if you're explaining a process, like how to bake a cake, don't jump straight into all the steps at once. Instead, break it down like this. First, you'll need to gather all your ingredients: flour, eggs, sugar, and butter. Next, you'll mix the dry ingredients together in one bowl, and then the wet ingredients in another. Once that's done, combine both mixtures slowly and stir well. By breaking it down into these small, easy steps, the person you're explaining it to will be able to follow along much more easily. Another technique that really helped me was learning to use transitional words and phrases. These words guide the listener through your explanation and help them understand the order of things. Some common transitional words are first, next, then, finally, to show the order of steps. For instance, to give specific examples. However, on the other hand, to show contrast or differences. In conclusion, to sum up, to wrap up or summarize. When I started using these, it made a huge difference. For instance, if I'm explaining how to troubleshoot an issue with a computer, I might say, first, check if the computer is plugged in. Next, restart the system to see if that fixes the issue. However, if it still doesn't work, you might need to check the settings. These transitional words clearly separate each step and make it easier for someone to follow along with what you're saying. Another thing I learned is to keep your language simple. Avoid using jargon or complicated words unless you're sure the person understands them. Instead of saying, "You need to calibrate the settings," say, "You need to adjust the settings." It's much simpler and still gets the point across. I also found that using metaphors or comparisons can help a lot. For example, if I'm explaining how a computer's hard drive works, I might say, think of the hard drive like a filing cabinet where you store all your documents. The more files you add, the harder it is to find what you need. This comparison helps the listener picture what you're explaining, making it easier to understand. One of the most important things I've learned is to check in with the person you're explaining something to, just to make sure they're following along. After explaining something, I now ask, "Does that make sense?" Or, Do you need me to go over anything again? It shows you care about whether they understand and gives them the chance to ask questions. If they don't understand, don't get frustrated. Just try explaining it in a different way or use a different example. For example, after I explained the filing cabinet metaphor, if they looked confused, I might try a different analogy, like, it's like a bookshelf. More books, more effort to find a specific one. Finally, when you finish explaining something, it's helpful to summarize the main points to reinforce what you've said. For example, at the end of explaining how to bake a cake, I'd say, so, to recap, gather your ingredients, mix the dry and wet ingredients separately, combine them, and then bake at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. This way, the person has the main points fresh in their mind, making it easier for them to remember and follow through. So, to sum up, when you need to explain something clearly, break it down into small, manageable parts. Use transitional words to guide your listener, keep your language simple, check for understanding, and summarize the key points at the end. These steps will make your explanations clearer, more organized, and easier to follow. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've had any experiences where you've struggled to explain something, or if you have any tips of your own, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more helpful tips. Take care, and I'll see you next time.